Part 1. The Fifth Date. Chen walked out of the restaurant with her heels clicking against the pavement, each step echoing louder than the last. The Los Angeles evening buzzed softly around her, cars humming, neon lights flickering, and laughter drifting from open patios, but it all felt like background noise to the weight sitting squarely on her chest. It had been the fifth blind date. Her parents were relentless, each date like a mission to rescue her from the abyss of spinsterhood, at least in their eyes. And this time? The man was 10 years older, called her young lady like she was a child, and within 15 minutes of polite conversation, informed her that he was looking for a wife who would step back from work and focus on building a real home. Linda had nearly choked on her spring roll. Her job in brand marketing wasn't just a paycheck, it was a part of her identity. A creative, passionate, driven part. Asking her to leave it all behind to play house was like asking her to erase herself. She reached the bus stop, dropping onto the bench with a sigh. The city smelled of fried food, engine oil, and late-night hope. She pulled out her phone and saw a message from her mother. How was he? Promising, right? He's stable and mature. Stable. Misogynistic. Linda let her head fall back, staring at the darkening sky. I'm 30, not 90, she muttered. To her parents, and much of their traditional Chinese-American community, 30 was already pushing it. A woman who hadn't married by now was whispered about at family gatherings, referred to with that dreaded word, leftover. Her aunt had even suggested she freeze her eggs during dinner. Linda closed her eyes, exhaling long and slow, the way her yoga instructor told her to breathe through tension. It didn't help. Then it happened. A blur of motion. A hand. A tug. Her handbag vanished. She sprang up instinctively, shouting, "Hey!" as the thief bolted down the sidewalk, weaving through pedestrians. And just as quickly, another figure sprinted past her. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a soot-stained navy t-shirt. Fire department logo barely visible. "Move," he called, charging after the thief. Linda blinked, stunned, watching as the two of them disappeared around the corner. 3 blocks later, the man returned. The bag was slung casually over his shoulder like a backpack, and he was breathing hard, sweat clinging to his temples. He looked like he'd just run a marathon through fire, and maybe he had. "You okay?" he asked, handing her the bag. "Didn't check inside. Just made sure he didn't toss anything." Yes," she stammered. "Oh my God, thank you." He nodded, glancing at her like he was mentally checking for bruises or signs of shock. "Saw the whole thing. You've got quick feet, by the way. Not a lot of people would shout and stand up like that." Linda gave a dry laugh. "I've had practice, 5 blind dates worth of frustration to work off." He raised an eyebrow, amused. She hesitated, then blurted, "Can I buy you a drink or something? I mean, it's the least I can do." He looked like he was about to politely decline, but paused. "There's a dive bar down the block. Open late." "You sure?" "Honestly," Linda said, "I could really use a drink." Part 2. The Stranger Who Stayed. The dive bar wasn't much to look at, dimly lit, peeling paint on the brick walls, a jukebox that hadn't been updated since 2005, but to Linda, it was a sanctuary. Somewhere between the noise and neon, she could forget about arranged dates and ticking clocks. They slid into a booth near the back. Brian, that's what he said his name was, ordered a beer. Linda went for something stronger. Whiskey. She didn't usually drink like this. But tonight felt like an exception. Brian glanced at her glass. "Rough day?" Linda chuckled, tipping her drink toward him. "You could say that. The guy I met tonight told me I'd be a great stay-at-home wife, because I seemed gentle enough. I almost threw a dumpling at him." He laughed, low and genuine. "Please tell me you did." "I was this close." They clinked glasses and drank. For a few minutes, they talked like old friends. About everything and nothing. His stories from the firehouse, some funny, some terrifying. Her experiences with clients who thought they knew more about branding than the agency they paid. There was something about Brian, grounded, patient, warm. Not the type of man who needed to prove anything. After her 3rd drink, Linda started to feel the heat rise to her cheeks. And then, as often happens when someone's held too much in for too long, it all spilled out. "I don't know what's wrong with me," she said, eyes glistening. "I'm 30, single, career-focused, and somehow that's a failure. At least according to every auntie in my family." Brian leaned forward slightly, his expression softening. "They don't see how hard I've worked, what I've built. They just see, no ring, no babies, no wedding photos to hang on the wall." She covered her face with her hands for a second. "God, I'm sorry. This isn't your problem." Brian was quiet for a beat. Then gently, "Hey, don't apologize for being real. Sounds like you're carrying a lot." Linda blinked at him. "No one's ever said it like that," she murmured. "You just needed someone to listen." They sat like that for a while, her words slurring slightly, his eyes kind and steady. She leaned on the table, fingers tracing the rim of her glass. "Maybe I should just give up," she muttered. "Let them set me up with some rich banker who wants a housewife. Pretend I care about throw pillows and soup recipes." Brian grinned. "You'd last a week." 3 days, she corrected, deadpan. At some point, the bartender flicked the lights twice, a gentle warning that closing time was near. Linda tried to stand, but wobbled, and Brian caught her elbow instinctively. "All right," he said. "No more drinks. You're officially in sleepy drunk territory." She slurred, "You're a very responsible stranger." He smiled. "Firefighter code." "I'm serious," she added, her voice softer. "You didn't have to stay." "I know." They stood at the curb under the flickering bar sign. Linda swayed slightly, still tipsy. Brian fished a small notepad and pen from his back pocket, firefighter's habit, maybe, scribbled something down, then tore it out and handed it to her. "Drink water. Sleep well. You're not broken. Just rare." "Brian." Before she could respond, he waved and walked off into the night. Part 3, Fire and Fate. 3 weeks passed. Linda often found herself pulling out the little note Brian had given her. She kept it folded inside her wallet, like a secret lucky charm. His handwriting was neat, slightly slanted. "You're not broken. Just rare." She read it on mornings when self-doubt crept in, and at night after long calls with her mother filled with heavy sighs and subtle guilt. It was during one of those calls that the 6th setup came up. "No," Linda said firmly, standing in her kitchen in her pajamas, stirring a cup of herbal tea she didn't even like. "Absolutely not, Mom. I'm done." "Linda, listen." "I am listening. But this is not how love works. I'm not a box you just hand over to the next available man." There was silence on the other end. Then came the tears. Her mother didn't yell or scold. She just began to cry, softly at first, then harder. "I know I'm old-fashioned," she said between sobs. "I just want to see you happy. I want to know you have someone to come home to. I worry, Linda. And this man, he's different. He's a firefighter. Good heart. Steady hands. If it doesn't work out, I promise, this is the last time I ask." Linda closed her eyes, heart heavy with the weight of love and guilt and exhaustion. "One last time," she said quietly. "I promise," her mother whispered. "Just meet him." But before that dreaded date ever came, the fire happened. It started on a Friday evening, somewhere on the lower floors of her Koreatown apartment building, an old structure full of frayed wires and wishful renters. Linda was heating up leftover mapo tofu when the lights flickered, and a sharp burning smell flooded the air. The hallway outside was already a mess of shouting and smoke. She grabbed her essentials, her phone, keys, wallet, with Brian's note still tucked inside, and ran for the stairs. By the second floor, the smoke was thick, curling into her throat like claws. Her eyes burned. Someone screamed down the hall. A stairwell door slammed. She stumbled, disoriented, until a voice cut through the chaos. "Hey, got one here." And suddenly he was there. Helmet. Oxygen mask. Eyes she remembered, even through soot and haze. "Brian." He grabbed her arm gently but firmly. "Linda." She could barely breathe, let alone speak. "It's okay," he said, switching on the mask for her. "I've got you." Deep breaths. "We're going out together." She clung to him like an anchor. With steady steps, he guided her down and out, away from the rising heat, through the buzz of sirens and firefighters, to the safety of the curb. When they finally reached fresh air, Linda sat on the sidewalk, coughing, trembling. Brian knelt beside her, pulling off his helmet, hair damp with sweat. "You again," she whispered, eyes wide with disbelief. He gave her that crooked smile. "Told you I show up when it counts." She laughed, breathless. "What are you, my guardian firefighter?" "Maybe," he said, sitting beside her. "Or maybe we just keep ending up in the same place because we're supposed to." For a few seconds, they just looked at each other. Even the sweat streaking down his face, the smudge of ash on his cheek, the way his chest rose and fell beneath the heavy gear, to Linda, it all seemed impossibly beautiful. "I never forgot you," she said quietly. He raised an eyebrow. "You kept the note, didn't you?" "I did." He looked down, shy for the first time. Then came a siren in the distance, and someone calling his name. Brian stood, offering his hand. "I've got to finish up. But I'm glad you're okay, Linda." She took his hand. "Me too." The next evening, Linda got ready for the 6th date like she was prepping for jury duty. She slipped into a navy dress, not too formal, not too casual, tied her hair back in a low bun, and wore flat shoes, practical in case she needed to escape. She didn't even ask who the guy was. She didn't want to know. Her mother had promised this was the last time. Linda figured she'd go, suffer through small talk, and get it over with. What she didn't expect was to walk into the quiet cafe and see Brian sitting at the table. No fire gear, no smoke, just him. In a collared shirt, clean-shaven, holding a coffee. Their eyes met at the same time. Brian's jaw dropped. Linda blinked. They both burst out laughing. "Are you kidding me?" she said, covering her face. "I swear I didn't plan this," Brian replied, standing up, still laughing. "But I'm really, really glad it's you." She grinned, dropping into the seat across from him. "Well," she said, reaching for the menu. "Looks like date number 6 might actually be worth it." Part 4, the 6th date. "So," Brian said, grinning over the rim of his coffee cup, "do I get points for punctuality or for saving you twice?" Linda raised an eyebrow, pretending to think. "I'll give you half a point for punctuality and a full point for not letting me die in a stairwell." "That's generous." He chuckled. Tough crowd. Their conversation flowed like they'd done this 100 times. There was none of the stiff awkwardness that usually plagued blind dates. No rehearsed bios, no polite lies about hobbies. Just two people, flawed, funny, and finally on the same page. "I seriously can't believe it was you," Linda said, sipping her tea. "My mom said you were strong and dependable. She left out the part where you chased down a thief and pulled me from a burning building." "She undersold me," Brian said, mock offended. But in her defense, I didn't mention either of those on my dating profile. Linda laughed. It felt good. Really good. For the first time in a long time, the pressure was gone. No ticking clock. No checklist. Just someone who saw her, all of her, and didn't flinch. When their drinks were finished, neither of them made a move to leave. Brian looked at her, a bit more seriously this time. "I don't know how your mom pulled this off. But I'm glad she did." Linda nodded. "Me too. Though I'm still debating if I should tell her I already knew you. Let her believe in fate. She deserves the win." They stood and stepped outside. The late afternoon sun was warm, but not harsh. A soft breeze danced around them, carrying the scent of jasmine and coffee. "Want to walk a little?" Brian asked. Linda smiled. "Only if we don't end up in another emergency." He raised a hand. "No fires today. Promise." They walked slowly, side by side, weaving through the weekend crowd. At one point, Linda glanced sideways at him, the way his hand brushed against hers but didn't rush to grab it, the quiet calm he carried in every step, the faint trace of a burned scar on his forearm. And then, without a word, she reached out and intertwined her fingers with his. He looked down at their hands and then up at her. "You sure?" Linda nodded. "You didn't run when I was a mess. You stayed." That means something. He squeezed her hand gently. So, does that mean I get a second date? She smirked. Technically, this is already the third time we've met. So you're behind. I'll catch up, he said. They walked in silence for a while, the kind of silence that doesn't need to be filled. The kind that says, this is good. This is enough. Epilogue. Months later, Linda's mother hung a photo on the wall, Linda and Brian, both smiling, standing in front of a fire truck. Brian was in uniform. Linda wore a red dress. Her mother had written a caption beneath it in gold ink, 6th time's the charm. Linda never said anything. But every time she passed that photo, she smiled. Sometimes, love doesn't come on schedule. Sometimes, it runs after a thief, drags you out of smoke, and shows up at a cafe with coffee and a crooked grin. Sometimes, the 6th date isn't just the last, it's the beginning.